Good day, everyone. Today is chapter 14, titled, Are We Having Fun Yet? Which I think is a fantastic title for our real lives with COVID-19. And are we having fun yet? I don't know. Some are, some aren't. So today's chapter is 14 and it's reading log 12 and it's a cause and effect question. So I need you to write about who was given to the ring, 2 people, and what were they forced to do, their bidding. 2 people were given the ring, what each person was forced to do, cause and effect. We also meet King Grimble, my favorite character in the book. Next week we meet my second favorite character. I know I said Feridonia and Ursula were one of my favorites, but they're not the first 2. But King Grimble is my favorite. So here we go. Chapter 14, titled, Are We Having Fun Yet? I woke up when someone threw a bucket of cold water on me. Even in my groggy state, I was beginning to figure this was the only bath I was likely to take in this particular lifetime. Speaking of baths, 2 big, hairy guys who looked as though they had never heard the word, and who may or may not have been the ones I had seen in the castle courtyard, were standing over me. One with the empty, though still dripping bucket in hand. This guy said something to me, a whole string of words I couldn't understand. "I don't speak your language," I said. The second man switched to whatever language English passed for in this world. "Where do it be?" he demanded. Despite his appearance, his accent was pleasant and musical, sort of Jamaican, but not. I was smart enough not to check to see if the ring I had tied to my bodice laces was still there. "Where do what be?" I asked. "Do not be playing the dumb one," commanded the other guy, his accent thicker. "The crown to be certain." Well, this was a surprise. I had no idea who these guys were or why they were looking for the crown, but I couldn't see any reason not to be honest. "I haven't been officially named the king yet. Not for a couple more days," I explained. "I don't know where they're keeping the crown in the meantime." The 2 guys exchanged a look that struck me as, "Can this girl be real?" look. "What?" I asked. They talked over me as though I wasn't even there. "Mayhap she be playing the dumb one," the one with the bucket said. "Or mayhap she be really as stupid as she seems." I realized that even though I was lying in a puddle of new-made mud, obviously these guys prisoners, there was a bunch of other guys looking just like these 2. A whole bunch, like hundreds. I guessed, seeing their tents, their campfires, I was in some sort of enemy camp. Buckless stroked his bushy beard speculatively. "It might be that no one has been telling her yet," he said, but he didn't sound as though he really believed it. "Nobody has told me much of anything," I agreed. "You'll be the new king?" the bucket guy said. Can they not be telling you what you needing to know to rule?" "Well," I admitted, "I do suspect some of them are trying to get around the me being the new king thing." The guy who spoke better English gave a short, sharp laugh, and this time I guessed he believed me. "I would bet," he said. Then he asked, "Do anybody be telling you about King Grimble?" I shook my head. "Who's he?" He grinned, his white teeth flashed. "Me." A king. Another one. Oh boy. You're not a contender for the throne of... An implanted memory floated into my mind's surface, and my kingdom gained a name. Shelby, are you? Now, if you still have your notebooks, I want you to write in your notes that her kingdom is called Shelby. That's Shelby. If you don't have your notebook anymore, then get out a piece of paper and save it, because if I'm able to download our test, that'll be part of your final exam. All depends on if I'm able to download it from home. That's Shelby. King Grimbold snorted. I be having my own kingdom, thank you. When Shelby and kings be not sabotaging us. He could see I wasn't following this. In the north, he added, which wouldn't have meant anything to me except for what Queen Adriana had said about us being threatened by a barbarian army in the north. I didn't ask him if he was a barbarian, which sounded a bit rude to me. Maybe it would, maybe it would not to a barbarian, but I decided not to chance it. I asked, King Cedric took your crown away. Is that what you're saying? He took away the actual crown? He be stole it away, the other man interrupted, from Grimbold's father, King Triplecon. Hey, I don't know anything about that. I was raised away from court. Huh! Grimbold gave that bark-like laugh of his, like Wolfgar. This was not new news to me, but for the first time I wondered if Wolfgar and I had more in common than I had suspected. That he had been educated away from home was the first thing Deming had said about him. But had it been to protect him again from court intrigue? Had Cedric seen that Queen Adriana had enough ambitions for herself that she posed a danger to their son when he was too young to defend himself? I saw that there were a lot more questions I should have asked at court. The barbarian with the bucket said, but now that King Triplecon is being dead, and Grimbold is being our new king, and now that Cedric is being dead, it is being time to reclaim the crown that was fashioned by Zenith for Brick the Slayer, our first chieftain. Zenith? I said, recognizing the name. There's a musician today by that same name. The men had exchanged a long-suffering look. They couldn't be talking about the same man, could they? How long ago had this Breck Slayer ruled? And how old would that make Zenith? But then again, we weren't talking about a magician. She do be as stupid as she looks, the guy with the bucket said. I be liking her, Grimbold argued. She does not know nothing, but I not be holding that against her. So what do that be meaning? The other man asked. We shall be letting her live, Grimbold said. Whew, that was a relief. Grimbold said, we shall be demanding the crown for ransom for her. Huh, the other gave a dismissive sort. What makes you be thinking they'll be paying a ransom for her, useless thing that she can be? I couldn't help but mentally agree. They were going to ask my family to trade something presumably of value for me. This opened up a whole new batch of possibilities for public humiliation. Grimbold stroked his beard pensively, as though his companion had presented a new thought. We can always be killing her later, he said. which I guess showed he wasn't all that emotionally attached to me. "Set a guard on her," Grimbold ordered, "and set an envoy to the castle to be demanding the return of my crown in exchange for the life of the new king." I couldn't even use my ring on Grimbold. If I said, "Here, take this ring," and he put it on, and then started doing everything I said, then surely this other guy would catch on that something was wrong. Nor could I use it on my guard. Grimbold had given his orders. There were way too many men in this camp who would question why those orders were being ignored if I got this guy to release me. The barbarian guard got a length of chain and some shackles, not promising an easy escape at all. Then he brought me to a tree in the midst of the campground, and he fastened me there by my left ankle. All in all, they were being more considerate than I had reason to expect from enemy barbarians. The shackle wasn't tight. The chain was long enough I could sit. Oh my gosh, our lightning just went out. Lightning just hit our place. Or something. Power went out. Sorry. Then he brought me to a tree in the midst of the campground, and he fastened me there by my left ankle. All in all, they were being more considerate than I had reason to expect from enemy barbarians. The shackle wasn't tight, and the chain was long enough that I could, here we go again, that I could sit, stand, lie down, or walk around the tree, choosing shade or sunlight as I please. But I still felt like a leashed dog. From the position of the sun, I guessed that it was mid-afternoon. My last meal, my stomach remembered, was breakfast of hard bread and salted fish back in St. John. A menu the real me had to keep from dwelling on, or I would have gagged. I felt hungry, and these guys would have already had their midday meal and wouldn't be thinking about supper for another several hours. A guard was posted to watch me. He was given the key to the shackles, which I found reason enough to try to strike up a friendship. It was hard to tell if he didn't speak English or if he simply didn't want to talk. There were some women in the camp, and one of them brought me a cup of water. "Thank you," I said. "Any chance of leftovers from lunch?" She looked at me quizzically and then said something that sounded like, "Dove nandaru." "Food?" I said. I pantomimed eating, but she shook her head. I thought she meant she didn't understand rather than I couldn't have any, but there was no way to know for sure. My guard certainly didn't offer any commentary. There were even a few kids. Some of them seemed curious. Some seemed to be playing a game of dare, approaching and then running away. When I didn't chase after them, a few got bolder and took up a new game of throw clumps of dirt at the prisoner. My guard napping obliviously in the shade of his own tree. I didn't know if my royal family was planning to rescue me. Should I patiently be waiting for them to come in and swoop in, or was I supposed to be working on some plan of my own? Of course, it would help if I had even the beginnings of a plan on my own to get started in the right direction. Knowing how difficult it is to judge the passing of time when you're bored, we all know that, I think I waited about an hour and a half, maybe 2. The sun did lower a little bit in the sky. This can't be right, I told myself. If anyone was going to rescue me, it was probably going to have to be myself. My opportunity came when a new guard took over. "Do you speak the language of Shelby?" I asked. "No," the man answered, revealing himself not quite rocket science caliber. I untied the ring from the lacing of my bodice. "Take this ring," I commanded. Sure enough, he understood me well enough that the magic of the ring compelled him to come forward and take it from my outstretched hand. This is the first person. You need both people that got the ring. And I figured he slipped it into one of his own fingers, and I figured that had to be another one of the ring's magical properties, that it would fit on anyone. Either that or my mother had very fat fingers. I want you to like me, I told the guard. Oh, I do, the man assured me warmly, and I feared we were veering into a direction I certainly didn't want to go. I want you to like me like a best buddy, I clarified. I want you to only want good things for me. I want you to want me to be safe and happy. Safe? Happy? He repeated, nodding his head energetically. I want you to release me and get me out of this camp. He came forward and tried to tear the chain in half with his bare hands. It looked as though I would have to do the thinking for both of us. I said, take the time to release me without attracting attention. The guard paused to consider, and then took out the key he had been given when he relieved the other guy. He unlocked the shackles. I stood. Put your hand on my shoulder. Act as if Grimbold has ordered you to bring me to him, except lead me out of the camp instead. If anyone asks, tell them you're acting under Grimbold's orders. Do you understand? Yes, buddy, he told me. We were fine for about 10 paces. Then King Grimbold himself came around the corner of the tent, and we found ourselves face to face. What do you be doing? Grimbold demanded. And my guard, compelled to do my bidding, answered, Grimbold's orders. I be ordering no such thing, Grimbold protested. Bring her back and secure her once more. My guard tried to stiff-arm Grimbold out of the way. Stop, Grimbold ordered. I said, what in the world was the way out of this? My guard waited 1 second to see what I would bid, and then he once again tried to shove past his king. Grimbold stopped the man the only way he could. He whipped out his sword and stabbed my escort in the chest. Well, that was too bad, but I wasn't going to let me slow me down. I made a break for the trees. Grimbold yelled something in his own language, and barbarians came pouring out of the tent. What felt like about 17 of them tackled me and jumped on top of me before I made it even a tenth of the way I had to. They took their time about getting off me, too. Now I know what a football feels like. My captors dragged my bruised body back to where Grimbold knelt beside the dead guard. Then he spoke in Shelbian for my benefit. He addressed his men. I be having to kill Isid because she be having some sort of power over him. I be thinking that this may be the source of her power. He held up the ring to show them. No, I assured them. Give me her finger, he commanded his men. With this crowd, I was lucky none of them was stupid enough to chop one off and hand it to him. I struggled because he didn't know that all he had to do was order me to take it. But I knew it was a losing battle. The ring slipped snugly over my finger. Now tell me true. Do you have to be doing what I say to you? Because he phrased it as a command, I had to answer. And I had to answer truthfully, even though I tried to deny it. I said. The best I could do was to mumble, my hands over my mouth. For once, everybody caught on quickly. One of the captors pulled my hands behind my back. Grimbold said, Tell me true. Do you be knowing the whereabouts of my crown? No, I told him. Obviously, he would be worried that the ring only worked once. Stand on one leg, he commanded. I balanced on one leg. Sing a song, he commanded. Maybe it was because I was standing on one leg, ready to tip over, but the first song that came to me was, I'm a little teapot. Those who understood Shelbian gleefully translated the stupid little ditty for those who didn't. With great hilarity, the barbarian horde shouted out suggestions to Grimbold, just in case he couldn't think of enough humiliating things to have me do. Dance, spin, spit. They loved that I couldn't stop an act unless specifically ordered to stop, even if I was simultaneously feeling compelled to complete another action. You try spinning, singing, and spitting all at one time, all balancing on one leg. Luckily, though, Rasmussen has nothing against killing off a paying customer. They won't allow sexual harassment. So that was one thing I didn't need to worry about. Pretend to be a chicken, Grimbold said. My singing changed to clucking. And I couldn't help myself. I began flapping my arms. Barbarian humor. I was saved from new indignities when the messenger they had sent to the castle returned. He spoke in his native language, which I didn't have to understand. I could tell by everyone's soured expression that Grimbold's offer had been refused. Now what? Would they kill me? Maybe. Maybe not. Grimbold obviously needed time to consider. Go back to the tree, he ordered. Of course, as soon as I tried walking using only one leg, I immediately tipped over. You may be walking on both feetsies, Grimbold told me. I walked back to the tree, still clucking, scratching at the ground with my toes. Even so, Grimbold didn't trust me and had me once again shackled. Enough with the chicken routine, I thought at him, but apparently he figured his camp needed the entertainment. I suppose I was lucky he rescinded the commands to sing and spit. If time had passed slowly for me as a prisoner, it passed even more slowly for me as a chicken. The sun set, the smells of cooking carried me, and still I couldn't stop clucking and scratching at the earth. Thank goodness I found no worms. I did try to lay an egg, though. After those in the camp had eaten, and after it had gotten dark, they finally became bored of me. They returned to their campfires and tents, leaving me with only one guard. I tucked my head under one arm and tried to sleep. I was awakened when Grimbold himself came to take the guard's place. What will I be doing with you? He asked. He leaned against the tree all the guards seemed to favor, which was out of my range in case I decided to peck him to death. You truly be a useless thing. Useless to me, useless to your own people. Maybe I'd be selling you into slavery to one of those nomad tribes. Or maybe I'd be selling you to the orcs, which have a tasting for human flesh. I sure hoped the Rasmussen program would send me back to the start of the game before anyone began roasting me on a spit. I tried to tell him that I was sure I could be useful. I was willing to side with him and turn on my royal family, but my pleading only came out as frantic clucking. Grimbold started to laugh. I wonder, he said, when the orcs be cooking you, if you be tasting like human or be tasting like chicken. He was still having a good time with that thought when he gave an odd sound, something like choking, but more bubbly. He pitched forward onto the ground, and a dark stain spread beneath him. A man stepped out from behind the tree, a man I recognized as one of those who I had been talking to in the castle court guard room. He was holding a knife in his hand, and I realized he had just cut Grimbald's throat. It would have been a nice rescue, except for the fact that, with the death of the person whose orders I was compelled to obey, I was destined to spend the rest of this lifetime as a chicken. "Don't worry, Princess," the rescuer whispered, so not to alert any of the barbarians. "The royal family was willing to leave you here, but we are not." "Cluck, cluck, cluck," I said. "You stupid idiot, you sure have lousy timing." The man looked startled, but nonetheless used his sword to try to pry open the link of my chain. There are others of us in the woods, so don't worry about the barbarians pursuing." "Yeah, that wasn't my chief worry." "Cluck, cluck, cluck," I said. "Look over here, you nitwit." And I pecked at the dead Grimbald's belt, where the key to my shackle was. The guard was leaning over Grimbald when a darkness detached itself from the shadows and launched itself at him. "Quack!" I squawked. "Woof!" But the man didn't turn in time, and in an instant my would-be rescuer was dead. I kept on squawking and flapping my arms, but nobody came. Apparently, the barbarians had had enough chicken antics for the day. So it isn't going to be the orcs eating me after all, I thought, as the wolf rounded on me. But then the wolf did a strange thing. It grew larger, longer, taller, and less hairy. And then it stood on 2 legs. In fact, it turned into Wolfgar, clothes and all. Wolfgar wasn't raised as a cattle, people kept telling me. No kidding. It was an old cliche, only literally true this time. Wolfgar had been raised by wolves. But so what if he was a shape-shifting wolf? I was willing not to hold that against him if he had come to rescue me from becoming orc soup du jour. But I didn't like the look in his eyes as he picked up the dead guard's knife and approached me. "Poor Princess Janine," he said with a feral grin. "A shame her gallant band of rescuers didn't arrive in time to keep the barbarians from slitting her throat." I felt the fizziness start even before the knife touched my skin. Real time, present day. May 25th, almost 4 in the evening. Subject of the email, urgent parts. From Nigel Rasmussen to the department head's distribution list. The suggestion from London looked good, but the parts were not available locally and needed to be obtained from Pittsburgh. We have chartered a flight, but it's very doubtful this will arrive in time. We are helpless and dependent on the gamer herself, which is not a comfortable position to be in. There must be something we could do. Keep thinking. Situation critical.